What up, beautiful people? It is your hunger Miss Shameless, all up in her house of Shameless. This is my production office. It's been 5 years since I started my YouTube channel. 5 years. I am throwing a 5-year anniversary party here in Los Angeles. If you live here, you can come alone, you can make friends. But I had this event last year and people leave making friends. You guys get to network and have fun. And it's a totally inspiring, just super cute, fun event. Amy Pham, DJ Amy Pham, and Min Pham are gonna be spinning the turntables. I have special guests that are gonna be popping up. Get your tickets before it sells out. Link is in the description box below. But 5 years ago, I was in my house and it wasn't very shameless, and it was in New York City. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to us for doing this together. A big thing in my life was I was always a quiet person. I was always shy, but I had a lot of energy and creativity bottled up. But because I was too ashamed to let that out, I kept it quiet and I held it back. If younger Maya saw this Maya today, she'd be really happy, because I used to always be inspired by big, shameless personalities. And because I was never that, I was always quiet. I was shameless with my cousins, but that was it. I asked myself the question, what would happen if I shamelessly promoted myself online? My goodness, what was wrong with me? I came up with it and I filmed a video, and I did that in New York at this art collective I used to be a part of called Con Artist, and this is the video.
Hi guys, my name is Maya and I'm a New York City based artist living in New York City. I need to learn how to put myself out there, whether I'm good or not. I formulated this challenge, this social media experiment. What would happen if I shamelessly self-promoted myself for 365 days of the year?
It really came about because I was an artist and I was full of shame, and I like to hide my work. I focus on being a perfectionist. I focus on being better, but never putting myself out there. And when my friend had suggested that I go on YouTube, I thought it was tacky. I thought it was shameless. And I was like, you know what, girl? I don't even know why I'm acting like this. I have nothing to lose. And I literally had nothing to lose. The older you get, the more you realize, or hopefully you realize, that this is your life and you get one chance to live it. A lot of my shame came from my upbringing. I was raised in a strict Catholic Filipino household, and my mom always taught me to be humble and don't be loud, just tone it down, just dim it down, tone it down. And maybe I wouldn't define it as shame then, but I think being humble can develop into being ashamed, because you have to reserve yourself. You can't be loud, you can't be bold, you can't be shameless. So some of the things I was ashamed of was my work. Namely, I have a background in photography and acting, and it was so awkward for me to put myself out there, to promote the craft that I studied, the craft that I work really hard at, and to tell people like, hey, I do this, look at it, and even more so than that, give me money so I can give you this service. And it's just like, that's really hard for an artist. I think a lot of artists struggle with that. And yes, artists are people, but I specifically had this video and this challenge for artists originally, but obviously it's open to everyone. You don't need to be afraid. And I feel that our fears come from an insecurity of us judging ourselves, of others judging ourselves. I think it's that insecurity of the fear of what others think overlaps with the concept of shame. So doing you means to do, to create, to make, to get out of your head and actually do something. But being shameless means putting yourself out there so it can be celebrated with other people. This is not like a loner, like I'm living my life by myself for myself, because we live in a community with people, and at the end of the day, yes, we want to be accepted. So it's a balance of doing what feeds your soul while involving other people into the conversation. When I said I'm gonna be shameless, people say, when is the moment that happened for you? And it literally happened when I said that. When I said I'm going to be shameless, it was just me making a declaration. I remember walking into work. I was working at a bar in New York, cocktail serving, and I remember I felt really happy. It was like a big weight had been lifted, because I made a promise to myself and I had steps in place on what I needed to do to be shameless. And I didn't know where it was gonna take me, but I knew that giving myself permission online bled and fed in other ways. But the concept of being shameless really came into play when I was going through my divorce and I wanted to stay in a marriage because I was ashamed of disappointing my family, disappointing my friends. And I'm like, girl, you can't contradict the lifestyle that you've created for yourself. You can't contradict the declaration you made to be shameless. You're with someone that doesn't even want to be with you. So why are you hanging on for dear life? So don't be ashamed of the backlash from other people. How are you really feeling? When I was honest with myself, like, I was able to make a decision and move forward. It's hard, like, living with what you think other people think of you and what you think of yourself. There's so much pressure that we put on ourselves based on judgment and shame. And it's the minute you can let go of that, it will transform your life. And so even though it was an online declaration to promote myself online, promoting yourself just means to grow yourself. And that applies in every area of your life. I would say moving out of my house was one of many shameless acts, and that happened well before this challenge. And I was 18, and it taught me independence, and it taught me to be responsible. But it also taught me to put myself out there, because I moved from Toronto to Los Angeles and I had to figure things out, and I didn't have anyone to lean on to help me get somewhere or help me get something. I couldn't ask them or even just like expect them to do that for me. So I had to be shameless in a sense and ask for a job, ask for a place to stay. That prepared me for my shameless milestone over a decade later and moving back to LA. This time I'm living in my dream loft, when previously I had been struggling to pay rent, both as a teenager and while living in the hood in New York City. That's like a full circle moment for sure. Definitely a huge milestone on my shameless journey would have to be working with Prince. He found me on YouTube because I was shameless and became a fan of my photography. I ended up going with him on the road when he performed at concerts, when he performed in his home, and finally his album cover for Artificial Age. And for a young girl who dreamed of having a small column in a magazine, to having the images appear on Times Square and all across the world, would have to top my list of shameless acts, working with the Prince of Shamelessness. Let me just look at my YouTube channel. The first one was definitely uploading a video. That was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. I bawled my eyes out after I uploaded it because I was so afraid and ashamed of what people would think. That actually happened for the first 3 videos. Oh, my natural curly hair routine. That was another shameless act because I put myself in a shower naked. I was naked. I didn't have a bikini, I was naked. So that was very shameless. And at the time, people weren't filming tutorials in their showers. Crashing New York Fashion Week was a big shameless milestone for me. I showed up with security guards. You can watch a video here. But that was very shameless. And then of course, shaving my hair live on YouTube was a definite shameless act. And following that, coming out with a rap single on iTunes with words written by yours truly on what it means to be shameless was shameless.
Study the game, play the game with no name, just for shame, no claim to fame. Bend the rules, showing these fools it's the dawn of the new school. We rule.
Shameless doesn't necessarily have to be loud, fierce, bold, but it could also be things that you're just ashamed or afraid to do. So for me, asking help from other people, that's a big thing for me. And for me to work in a production office with a team of people, it was and still is hard for me to ask for people to do things because I'm still in this mindset of like, do it yourself, you can do it, you can figure it out, don't put that on someone else. I'm like, girl, what you paying them for? And it was just being able to keep going. Yes, it was encouraging to have positive feedback and comments online, but to be able to see something through week after week, it boosted my confidence. Like, you've done this for 1 week, you've done this for 2 weeks. The more you do it, the better you'll get. So my confidence came from just doing it more. In order to gain, you have to give up. There has to be some sort of sacrifice. It could be your firstborn, your dog. I'm joking. For me, it had to be something that was taking up an area of my life. So celibacy was one thing that I sacrificed in order to gain and grow. And I am not kidding you. Listen, I got the videos online to prove it. But 3 years ago, my life was very different. And then I made a promise to abstain from sex in my life. Because I gave that one area up, I was able to excel in work. So I'm not necessarily telling people to, be abstinent, be celibate. But if there's an area in your life that you can give and sacrifice, do that. Me learning about sacrifice came from reading the Bible, giving sacrificially money. At church, I'd always give like $1, thinking I was like, yo, that's $1 bill, yo. And then I was like, wait a minute, let me try to give more. So then I'd give $5. And I'm like, whoa, let me try 20. This is a lot for me to give $20. Like $20 is a lot of money, especially when you're struggling in New York City. But I just started to give more, and that allowed me to receive more. And if you can find an area of your life where you can give, whether it's your time, money, do that, because it will transform your life. I take my head with me. I don't make rash decisions. I don't just decide out of thin air that I'm gonna do this. Like when I decided to be shameless, it had taken me a month to like weigh out like what would I gain from this, what would I lose from this. And then when I realized not a whole lot, then I took that risk. But I took my head with me in the process. So look at all your options, and when you see that there's more pros than cons, then go ahead and take a risk. And sometimes it might not even be the case, but look at all things considered. I feel like a lot of the things that I've done on impulse, maybe not all of them, but a good handful of them, I was like, why'd I do that? The things that I've planned and like worked towards have like been like way more satisfying. For me, moving to Los Angeles when I was 18, I didn't decide on a whim. I made a decision and I thought about it. I'm like, okay, well, where would I live? How would I get around? How much money would I need for a month, 2-3 months? And then once I figured all of that out, and then I booked a ticket. Like I remember when I came to LA, I had been reading the map so much in Toronto that when I came here, it was like a pop-up map. Because I knew where everything was, because I studied that map inside and out. I sometimes feel that people misuse that word to like kill dreams. And they're like, be practical, be realistic. And I'm like, so long as it doesn't stop you from attempting. I think there's more value in trying something and failing than not having tried at all. A financial habit that I cultivated when I was living in New York, which was 25 years old, it took me that long to figure it out, and then I still need to figure it out, was to save 10% of everything I earned. And that like transformed my bank account. Every time I got a check, whether it was for $200, for $2,000, I always took 10% and I put it in a savings and I didn't touch it. I remember when I saved $10,000 for the first time, I was like, what is life? This was before YouTube. I was like, I made all this money, and every time I put more money in, it was that much more precious to want to take out. And in the beginning, it was like, whatever, but then it started to grow, and I'm like, damn. So if you can learn the discipline to start something and see it through, you'll be surprised where you end up. And it takes time, but nothing worth having comes overnight. I think it's really important, again, to do you, boo, and be shameless. And that means unplugging from social media. You have to like cancel out all the noise, because social media is very loud, and it's a distraction, and that's something that you can sacrifice to gain. Be disciplined in terms of like how much you're scrolling. If you can set aside a certain amount of time in a day, or this is the only time frame that you go through social media, and using it to be inspired and like flag the things that inspire you. If you're following someone who kind of triggers you, I would suggest that you unfollow them, and it's nothing personal. And I had to do that for myself, and some people took it personal because they're like, oh, you're a hater. I'm like, perhaps I am a hater, and that's why I need to stop following, because I hate my life after I look at your life. It makes me feel some type of way, and the best thing for me to do is not follow. Do I hate this person? No, but that's being honest and real with myself. And once you can be honest with yourself, you can take the actions necessary to take care of yourself. Well, I got 3. They call them the 3 C's. And the first one is content. What are you putting out there? Is this information that you would find helpful? Is this information or content that you like versus what you think other people would like? Then there's consistency, being consistent with when you post, how often you post. And the way social media runs is on algorithms. So if you want to be plugged into that algorithm, being consistent will help with that. And then the third is call to action, asking your viewers or the people that are following you to do something. And it's not like a kind of flamboyant ask. It's like the more you can think about the ask or the question that you're going to write, the more personal, the more real it is from you, the more engaged your readers or your followers are going to be to want to respond. 3 C's. My advice for you boos that are watching, whether you're 18, whether you're 55, I would say whatever has been weighing on your heart to do, take the first step and do it. Whether that means writing your goal down. And I'm big on writing things down. I'm like the queen of like the napkin writing. I would write things on napkins and my cousins would keep it. And then they would pull it out. They're like, Maya, look what I found. And it's just like, damn, I wrote that and it happened. One of them was, I will be living in New York or LA within 5 years. And then I literally did both of those. I have a journal that's 15 years old, and all of the things that I wrote in that journal, I'm living out, and it's insane. So I think that writing things down is definitely powerful. I encourage you to take the life that you have and mold it and shape it into the life that you want. I wasn't born with money. I was born poor. I was born with a single mother raising me and a brother, and I literally looked up to my role models, the people that inspired me, Jesus, Grace Jones, and Bruce Lee being a few big ones. And I took bits and pieces of their life and I allowed it to inspire mine. And I shaped the life that I wanted. And I was so fortunate to have a mom that loved me and that cared for me and that pumped me with positivity and protected me from the evil that is out there in the world. Belief and faith and confidence comes from doing. You have to do it. You have to get out of your head, because I can live in my head all day. I can have all these brilliant and amazing ideas, but that doesn't mean shit if I'm not actually putting the action behind it to do it. Be more focused on what you need to do to get from A to B versus what someone can do to help you get from A to B. And I feel like a lot of people get inspired when they watch my videos and then they send me an email and ask me for help. All y'all millennials are spoiled with your asking for help for X, Y, and Z, and it's just like, you need to help you before you can expect help from other people. And it will be that much more powerful when somebody does come into your world, because when you start taking those steps forward, the universe, God, whoever you want to call it, will start bringing people into your world and in your circle to help you along the way, and you didn't even have to like ask them. Don't give up. This is the day and age to live and dream big. What's next for moi and my shamelessness? I'm in a production office, okay? So I want to take this office and the staff and the visions that we have and continue to grow that. Some specifics for you guys, scripted show. We're working on our merchandise for the store, more events in other cities, and just continuing to be inspired while inspiring you. That was something I wrote down on my vision board like 10 years ago. And remember to do you, boo. And I mean do something, okay? Don't just say it. Do it and be shameless.